Hi, I'm Austin Daly. Welcome to Crash Course Art History, the shameless ripoff of the series by the Green Brothers, and hopefully they don't sue me over it because I'm a poor college student. Anyway, on to the lesson. So today, instead of talking about a specific art piece or style, we're going to be talking about the representation of a specific theme in art. Can't we just talk about like statues instead or something? This sucks. Screw you, douchey kid who's in every class. We'll still talk about statues, but instead we'll talk about how it represents an idea, specifically the idea of the Trojan War. Isn't that dumb story written by like Simpson or something? Homer, douchey kid, Homer. And yes, both the Iliad and Odyssey are significant because if you think about it, Homer actually didn't create those stories. He just wrote them down. And that's what we're talking about today, the significance of the spreading of an idea over time, specifically through art. But before our unique butterfly oven approach, we should probably recap that whole Trojan War thing, because I'm assuming you all weren't giant nerds who learned all of Greek mythology before they were 10 like I was. Fasten your seatbelts, kids, because it's gonna be fast. So it all started when all the gods wanted to have this super banging party, and so they invited everyone, all that cool stuff, except for Eris, the goddess of discord, which I don't know why you'd invite her, because she's the goddess of discord. But anyways, aside from that, the party was going, and Eris was super pissed, and so she brought a golden apple that was labeled to the fairest, and then rolled it into the party, and all the gods were like, hey, what is that? And it landed in between Hera, Aphrodite, and Athena, and they were like, oh, that's mine. And so they were naturally white girl wasted, and so they all tried to fight
Zeus,
for it,
who is not in the mood for this shit, decides to let the Prince of Troy, Paris, be the judge of who gets the apple, because he's fair or whatever. So that happens, and all the goddesses try to bribe him while naked, because boobs, and Aphrodite wins, partly because she's hottest, also because she offers the most beautiful mortal woman, Helen.
Whoa, flare from each of you. And then so each of you drop your cloak. 1, 2, 3. And then he's like, whoa, hey.
The king Menelaus got his bro Agamemnon, and together launched a 1,000-ship fleet and began what would become a decade-long siege. There's a bunch of underlying melodrama, and some important people like Hector and Achilles get involved, and there's a horse at the end, and the Greeks win, but at last the Trojans under Aeneas fled to somewhere that we'll get to later.
But now that all the tragic gist is out of the way, let's get to how this all relates to naked statues. So as hopefully most of you know, Greek mythology isn't just a collection of stories. It actually portrays their religion, a polytheistic, multifaceted system of everyday worship and life that also includes the seemingly unpious story of Troy. Because what the epic tells us of the Greeks is how much pride they associate with themselves and their religion, how they defeat all the foreign hordes with their cunning and victorious heroes. One only needs to look on the shining Athenian Acropolis for proof. Within the low-relief carved marble metopes of the Parthenon itself, they're the scenes of the Battle of Troy. Literally on the side of one of the most significant temples in Greece, you have scenes of this victorious scene, a physical manifestation of the Greek feeling of themselves and the others. The Greeks didn't just follow a religion, they were their religion. Even through this simple artistic decoration on the facade of a temple.
As they would do their annual processions and bring their wine and oil and all the other shit they just end up eating anyways, they would be literally underneath this story, integrating their lifestyle within their religion with aesthetics that tied all aspects of worship and life together.
And there was something about this self-aware cultural nature that the Greeks had that was appealing to the other cultures of the area.
This was largely in part to the prolific trade the Greeks did, selling their herbs and alcohol to everyone like a college kid to high schoolers. And one of the key aspects of this business was their famous figure pottery, either to carry their goods or to be sold as goods themselves.
It's done in a technique known as black figure painting, not to be confused with blackface painting, where a dark liquid slip is painted over a lighter, redder slip, and then incised with mad-ass detail. Vases and vessels like this were prized for their artistry, and many of them included mythological imagery that included scenes from, you guessed it, the Trojan War. Here, in this one, we see Ajax and Achilles playing a dice game in a battle well, because apparently that's what you do in war. Murder a bunch of dudes and then whip out a board game. Anyway, this kind of iconography is significant because, again, the Greeks were spreading their ideas of humanism and culture across the Mediterranean, including local areas that would adapt these ideas into their own, such as our little friends, the Romans. Remember a flashback to the war story and how Aeneas fled Troy to an unknown land? Well, that unknown land was actually the Italian peninsula, and after a lot of political acts, sex, and more melodrama, eventually his descendants would end up founding the city of Rome. Romans would use this aspect.
They even modeled a government system of republicanism off an adaptation of Athenian democracy, with a senate that for a while worked out, other than the fighting and high school drama. But like any good Roman history, that essentially died because of assassination.
And upwards the emperors, who wanted to emulate Greek ideals, created propagandistic projects and art that harkened back to the classical beauty and power of ancient Greece. Look at the statue of Augustus from Prima Porta, for example. Even the way it's carved is harkening back to a Polycleton statue of Cannon. And look down at his feet also. Notice that little thing down there? That's Eros/Cupid, also the son of Venus/Aphrodite, which is actually a reference to a supposed family line. Because according to myth, way back when, Aphrodite/Venus got busy with a prince named Anchises, and later they would have a son named, you guessed it, Aeneas. Augustus was knowingly and subtly referencing both mythical Roman history and classical Greek culture through the Trojan War story, which both showed the status of his nobility and also showed the importance of this myth throughout true history, not just myth. And it wasn't even just the money-hoarding emperors that made these allusions either. The money-hoarding rich people did it also. Took a quick trip out of Rome, and eventually it'll come up on the city of Pompeii.
Right, rich people. So in Pompeii, all the merchant families built those kick-ass villas and atriums and courtyards and shit that they would throw their killer parties at, partly to get mad turned up, and partly to show off all the cool shit that they would buy in the coin-based currency. One of the things they would drop money on were frescoes.
Which of course were images with pigment applied on wet plaster, which would often depict many different types of scenes, including dramatic ones. One of the best remaining examples is from the city from around 100 CE and depicts scenes from, drumroll please, Trojan War. This story is so damn ingrained in the cultural symbolism that it's even used in domestic secular decoration. This kind of lasting artistic significance was only rivaled by Egypt, and even then they were conquered by the Greco-Romans eventually. Yeah. And this enveloping effect wasn't just in Egypt either. It was in England, Spain, France. All of these areas that were surrounded by Greco-Roman culture became enveloped in it. Western civilization itself has been based off the ideals of Greco-Roman culture and civilization. I mean, even our beauty standards of back then are the same as they are today. Today we look at the Trojan myth, through various different contexts and mediums, yet still representing the same ideals and goals. Naturally, the presence of oral tradition was probably an aspect of the continuation of this myth, but arguably, art was one of the main factors that helped stretch this cultural aspect. This isn't just an occurrence in European or Western art either. You can see it in Mesoamerica, China, Africa. The idea that in art history everything is a clean-cut period is ridiculous, when in fact art and history and culture all blend simultaneously together into a fluid, fascinating aspect that's all running through different societies. That's why we looked at the subject a little differently today, because I wanted to show the different aspects of art, how it flows, how it moves. Also talk about the kick-ass parties, but mostly the first thing. And with that final thought, a special shout out to our production team and actors, Clancy, Trish, Caitlin, and Marissa, and also our editor Mackenzie, and I'll see you next time on Crash Course History. I'm Austin Daly.
The whole back's open.
My ass is up there.
Shake that ass.
No.
Hold her up.
Your head down. Start over.